into a typed document.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not going to touch it. And they left, and they have used it ever since that they served the original restraining order on me.
Right, okay.
And they didn't. And listen, please, listen, in case I'm dead in 10 minutes.
Now, I'm taping this.
They left the room. These were at least 4 guards from underneath Cardiff magistrates.
Right.
And the clerk of the court was hiding across the corridor. I cross-examined him in a later court case, and he admitted that he hid in an open cell to witness it being served on me.
Right.
Which, of course, was a pack of lies, because the guy who opened the door, whose name escapes me, one of the guards, regular guards, had it rolled up in his hand,
Right.
and I could see sufficient on it that it was a form partly filled in by hand. Now, what people need to know is that when a judge decides to serve a restraining order on a victim, like me, they talk to the prosecution service, who usually have already drafted, before the case starts, a restraining order to serve on the victim, whether he wins or loses the case.
Right.
Because you can get a restraining order served on you even if you win the case.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And therefore, the Evans, David Evans, the solicitor who was the prosecutor who I arrested, you may remember that he was prosecuting the 1st of December 2009 in front of that wicked magistrate, whose name I can't remember. But there were 10 of you there.
I wasn't there, yeah.
No, you weren't there, but my daughter was there, my sister was there from Jersey. There were people like, two people from Jersey. There were people from London.
Well, Hamilton, Steve Hamilton.
Hamilton was there and took copious notes and will confirm everything I'm saying. And there were 10 of them.
Yeah.
And then I got fed up and I said, I'm going down in the cell to read my telegraph. This case is a farce, an absolute farce. And I went down for the last couple of hours of the hearing in my cell. I was on sticks, I was on crutches, and because of my hip, and neglected hip. And the magistrate judge, what his name is, I can't remember that, Terry, stayed on right to the end and made a copiously intricate witness statement of what went on.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge, I wish I could remember his little bastard's name, he communicated with the prosecutor, because remember, I caught the prosecutor in the civil court a few years later in the foyer in Cardiff, and I arrested him for perverting the course of justice, and it worked like a dream. I was arrested for assaulting him, so he finished up, and they moved it out of Wales because it was so embarrassing, in front of a Bristol judge.
Mm-hmm.
Who couldn't keep up with it, but it didn't matter. He was of no importance. It was me getting the information from David Evans, and he admitted, of course, when the judge realised that I was examining him for something completely different to me assaulting him, i.e. arresting him, putting my hand on his collar,
Yeah.
he tried to stop me cross-examining, but I had enough transcript, just enough, for David Evans to admit, no, it's quite routine for a prosecutor to arrange for a draft restraining order to be taken down to the party in the cells, especially if he's not represented by a lawyer, to confirm that, okay, is this a reasonable one? Are you not going to oppose it? Will you accept it so that when the judge comes back from his cup of tea and chocolate biscuits, it's all sorted?
Yeah.
Well, that is exactly what happened with me. I was waiting for it. I knew exactly what they were up to, and I was in my cell, and the door opened, and 4 plus 1, there were 4 guards, and the clerk of the court across the corridor pretending to hide in a cell.
Yeah.
And the lead guard said, "Oh, we have a," I don't know what he said. He said, "A restraining order. Oh, we got something here for you." And I said, "No chance." And I put both hands up, dropped one of my sticks. I said, "No. I mean, I knew what was going on, but the kids didn't know." And I said, "No." And they used that incident for the next 10 years.
Right.
That I had been served the first restraining order. Well, of course, A, I never saw it,
Yeah.
and 2, it was never served on me. And I went out and I went to London. I think I was fighting the music case up in the Tottenham police station. And I went straight up there trying to help them rescue their 6 kids from the Haringey Council bastards who were making huge sums of money out of laundering children. And I then went to see Roly Poly in Nice, his name escapes me at the moment, who was fighting for kids, all this fraud and everything about snatching kids in our community. What's his name? I know, Miriam Bowen.
Marion Bowen, yeah.
And he tried to stop me going to London because there was a warrant for my arrest. I said, "No, I'm going up there to give evidence for the Muses, because somebody's got to say exactly what the Muser case was about." And 10 years on, no one's heard the truth. Because when I went up there...
Well, when you got arrested?
Yeah, I went to
that was December 2011.
Yeah, well, whatever the court case was. The courtroom in London, North London...
yeah, it's Wood Green Court, yeah.
Southbrook or South, whatever it's called.
No, it was Wood Green.
Wood Green, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Wood Green. And they arrested me, but I was able to give evidence.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, well, by the way, there's a warrant out for my arrest, but that makes no difference to my evidence on oath." And they then locked me away. Now, for breaching a restraining order, because I didn't know about the restraining order until I was in the cells back in Cardiff. And none of the prison officers, none of the police would help me at all. I said, "Breach what restraining order? What?" And I don't know, 2 o'clock in the morning or something, these orderlies come through with coffee and so on. And he went off and faxed it. He actually got it off the police station fax machine, because it was a very badly done print, sent from somewhere else, sent from the CPS, I expect. And he pushed it under my cell door, and it said that I had received a restraining order on the 1st of December from that wicked stipendary magistrate.
Hold on, this was 2 years later, yeah?
No, 2011.
Yeah, the original...
Within days of me being released from the cells in handcuffs and in a wheelchair.
Yeah, when did they attempt to... And you said no in the cell and put both your hands up. When was that?
At the same time.
That was in 2011.
It was on the 1st of December, 2011.
Yes.
At about 4:30.
Okay.
3:30 in the afternoon.
Right, because the Moose's case was 23rd of December. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, no, wait for it. I was due in her court, his court and her court, on the 28th of November at Haringey Corner Magistrates. And the Welsh police realised that if I went to that court and gave evidence how the the solicitors in what's the place called? Kentish Town High Street.
Yeah.
Campbelltown, what's it called?
No, yeah, Kentish Town, yeah.
Yeah, High Street. Powell and Partners.
Yeah.
Powell, wicked solicitors, because Sabine McNeil and Mr. and Mrs. Muser and myself had gone in there the 2 days before and demanded that they have their legal papers back, because the Powell lawyers were milking the legal aid system.
Yeah.
And they called the police, and I stayed. I said, no, we're going to create a court case out of this, because I want proof that these lawyers are breaking the law. And that is why they did me for racial discrimination, something or other. I said, hang on, there's no one coloured, or whatever word they used in those days, or what we use, are supposed to use now. Anyway, there were only white people there, and I said, oh, hang on. There was, it looked like a Nigerian, actually, female, who was on the phone box system, the phone in the corner of the building.
Right.
And I thought, they're going to say I didn't even talk to her. And they charged me for that in order to lock me away, which was just a few days before the hearing, was just a few days before I went before the Cardiff court, before that magistrate, what that little bastard called? Nasty man, ignorant too, very ignorant. Secondary magistrate. Anyway, he got into such a fluster that he stormed out of the courtroom. I went down in the cells, well, 2 or 3 times. I came up and said, right, you sorted it out, you're going to have a proper British courtroom hearing properly, are we? You know, all the usual stuff.
Yeah.
And he handed down a restraining order, but he never handed it to me.
Right.
When I saw the prosecutor in the county court 2 or 3 years later, I arrested him.
Yeah.
I made sure I did it under the cameras, so that I could show that I was just simply putting my hand on his collar, saying, right, you're under arrest for perverting the course of justice. You know I never received a restraining order. And it took another 2 years, because I was in prison on and off, in Bristol prison. They moved me. They kept moving me around to talk up my civil claims against South Wales Police.
Yeah.
And they were trying to stop what I had now happened. And they took me to court for assault on Evans, who's quite a harmless sort of fly, actually. And the prosecutor, the judge, the deputy judge, came out from Monmouthshire or even England, and he realised what was going on, and he said, yeah, conditional discharge. And of course, to stop me appealing. Well, of course I appealed it. I said, no, I'm going to appeal it. But you know what are you doing? It's a conditional discharge. I said, I am appealing it. I want to cross-examine that Crown prosecution lawyer who has perverted the course of justice by keeping his mouth shut. And that has been my problem in Wales right through the whole court system for 3 decades. Lawyers after lawyers, instead of acting their responsibilities and positions of privilege, will not speak in open court. And he came to court and he said what the truth was. He told the truth. And he realised that I appreciated that. But of course, the system, you asked me about the current situation, about restraining orders at the moment, which is what they want to serve on me at Christmas and double my time in prison, because I have a history of a restraining order which I never had in the first place. Yeah, but of course, Ellery Rees, the recorder of Cardiff, lovely lady, she brought up the subject, well, did you actually get served restraining order? I said, no, I did not. And I said, let's talk about the second one, which is far more fun, because I kept the transcripts of me cross-examining those kids that were down under the cells that day, and none of them admitted giving me the restraining order. But it's the variation that's even more absurd.
Yeah.
About 2 years later, about 2006, something like that. The lawyer from Bristol was now taken over the whole prosecution system, Chris Smythe, barrister, and he could see that I never got a restraining order, but it's his job. He is barrister. It's his job to prosecute.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where he says, look, hang on, I can't go any further. This is ridiculous. But they still have to proceed in case new evidence crops up during the trial. This is why a lot of these trials, like mine at the moment, that should have been stopped, cannot be stopped and should not be stopped because they've set up an inquiry by way of a jury. But quite often, new information comes in, like my machine gun case, right at the end. Well, I kept it back on purpose for a bit of fun. The variation. He promised me, Chris, what his name is?
Smythe, yeah.
From Queen's Square Chambers down on the docks in Bristol. He promised me, because he knew it was wrong. He knew. He said, I will inquire about the background of this case. And he told me he did, and I believe it. And I believe he spent at least 2 hours going through the paper, but he couldn't get that stuff off the bloody lying Welsh, could he?
Right.
It's exactly the situation now. They can't get... They've been made a complete fool of in England by pretending that you're involved and Alan Cairns was involved and then not involved and so on. I know who I sent my letter to and so on. But we'll save that for the jury for a bit of fun. And the restraining order variation, they couldn't fight it. They couldn't face it because they had jailed me now. That little bitch, that lying little bitch. What's her name? Tracy Lloyd.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lloyd Williams.
Lloyd Clark. Yeah. Yeah.
What a lying little bitch. To my face. I said, okay, you're sending me to prison for 2 years. Can you do anything about the false medical reports by Roger Wood, professor of just a psychologist from Swansea University, and that lying little shit who's had to quit the UK and live in New Zealand because he knew he was lying throughout. Forgotten his name.
Yeah.
No, I'm not
TW.
I'm not allowed to say his name. Otherwise I'm breaching what they call a restraining order. Yeah. Anyway, here we are again. Deja vu. They've got the evidence. I never got the first restraining order, and I asked Chris. He's an okay guy. Chris, whatever his name is.
Smythe.
What was his name?
Smythe.
Queen Square Chambers.
Yeah.
Bristol. Smythe, that's right.
Yeah.
Smythe. I've lost my hearing aids. And he really delved deep. And of course he found out that, of course, there was no record of me being served the second one either.
Right.
Because where was it served? Who by?
And
I have been asking, and then this little bitch, Tracy Lloyd Clark. Oh no, that was all settled by Ellery Reese, the recorder of Cardiff Crown Court, Her Honour Judge Ellery Reese. I said, oh no, it wasn't. I was there. I was in charge. I provoked the conversation for her to realise that I never got the first restraining order. And now here we are, you're saying that I had the second one. Well, I defy you to produce somebody in front of me who did it, who served it on me, when and where, and so on. And I'll finish you with this. This is even more fun. So I thought, well, let's have a bit of fun and drag in a lawyer for this, just to, oil the wheels of their...
make it official,
Yes, of their disgusting daily behaviour in Welsh courtrooms. And so I got a barrister, I forget his name at the moment, but don't say his name, and And I said, could you wander along? And because they won't let me vary the restraining order. I'm in jail for, I don't know, 5 years I was in jail for.
Yeah.
And I said, they won't let me vary the variation of an order which I never received in the first place. And do you know, to this day, I still have not been given a copy of the variation.
Right.
They keep sending me the original, because there was no variation. They cocked it up. And the barrister who came back from court and saw me in somewhere, it took 6 months to get into the prison, he said, do you know, he said he went there, Cardiff. And another stipendiary judge, whose name escapes me, was in charge, and he said, oh, I represent Mr. Kirk, he's at Her Majesty's pleasure at the moment, we're terribly sorry that he can't be here himself, he apologises profusely, etc., rhubarb, and he says, Mr. Kirk insists that he never got served the first one, and if you served the second one, he may have forgotten or not realised that the papers were given to him. But when and where did that happen? Because Mr. Kirk in his cell has never come across a second restraining order variation to the original.
Right.
And the stipendiary judge, he went out of the court. I think it was 22 minutes. I always ask him to time everything. And he came back, he couldn't find it. They couldn't find the paperwork for what I was in court for. No, for what the barrister was in court for. That is the disgusting Welsh for you. They had no intention of processing it, because if they processed it, they would find that Maurice Kirk never got the restraining order, the variation, let alone the first one.
Right, okay.
And ever since, of course, I've been trying to get to see it. And here we are now.
So you still haven't seen it then?
No.
Right.
No, they sent me the original, thinking that it was the first one, the second one.
What, the first one that you refused when you were in the cell?
After I'd been arrested and jailed for it.
Right, okay.
This coffee maker down in Central Police Station in Cardiff, the one there, Cardiff Bay, pushed it under my cell door. And I think he was breaking all the regulations. But I think he was an old, his father was a client of mine when I was a vet. You know, that's how it usually happens. And,
right.
So here we are now.
Wait for
it. Well, here we are now with the Bristol barristers in trouble because they were involved years ago. And they are now going to have to argue that certain people in the current court case are vulnerable, that I cannot cross-examine.
Right.
And they're going to use bad character on the convictions of breaching restraining orders. Well, you might think, and other people might think, my family might think, I might have just set this up. Bust the bastards wide open, in an open court, in an English civilized environment.
Yeah.
They are going to have to regurgitate the whole issue of that magistrate on the 1st of December with 10 of you in the gallery, not you weren't there.
Yeah.
10 of all the usual boys and girls from London, from Scotland, from all over the place, to witness abusive process at a high level. We're going to have it all over again, aren't we? That's why we must keep the case going. They must not withdraw the last charge.
Right. Well, don't look like they are, doesn't it?
Well, if they were, they would have done long ago. But it's being run from London because it's certain people involved.
Yeah.
Don't say anything. This case is being run from head office, Crown Prosecution Service in Regent's Park in Petit France headquarters. They gave that away because when I was locked up, the letters had London postmarks with Petit France written on it.
Right.
So this is why everything's running so slowly. This This is why I wasn't released. This is why it's taken a good judge in where I've been going in court lately, has now said, right, no, enough of this. They haven't produced the disclosure. They haven't produced the letter I sent to you. They haven't produced the letter that I sent to Alan Cairns MP, then Secretary of State for Wales. They haven't produced the original letters of anything, because the Welsh police cannot let the English police, for the prosecution before a Crown Court, have the original documents, because the content of each letter supports my reasons for desperately trying to contact my new Member of Parliament.
Yeah, and there was no harassment,
There's no animus between me and a complete stranger, never spoken to the person, and so on. And the judge this week in Exeter Crown Court, I can tell you where it was, he picked up very quickly that, of course, there's history. There's history about all this that goes back decades, which the Welsh would not have known about. But then they found out about it, but still persevered and withheld evidence to the English CPS, a chap called N.C. Evans. They insist he's English. And then I went before a Crown Court judge called Evans. Who insisted he was English. A great guy. I got on very well with him. And then I remembered that 30 years ago, 20 years, 25, 30 years ago, I was in Exeter Crown Court, the last time I was there, facing 7 harassment charges of squatters in my house in Wellington. And there was a bunch of Irish tinkers, what we call diddy-coys, so big ones, who go around with their horse and donkey and they steal overnight and then move on and keep moving, so they never get caught. And a whole crowd of these came to court. The police were picking up in police cars each day and taking them from Wellington, my house in Wellington, a big house, down to Exeter's Crown Court. And Judge Evans, would you believe, could be the father of the judge I've just been in front of. He didn't have enough of it. He had enough of this. He said, no, I'm striking out 3 or 4 of the 7. And I think we're left with, I think I was left with 4. And the jury were out for 4.5 minutes, so it's about 4 minutes. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, of course. And here we are, deja vu. And back in the same place with possible ancestry who know all about me long before this court case in. And of course now the current judge has let me leave the country. I can go back to France. I can now sleep outside this flat. It means I can now fly the aeroplane around the country, and it looks as if I'm going to apply for going back to Africa to rescue this aeroplane.
Right. Question. When did they attempt to pull it down your sock then? When you were on the floor?
Well done. Well done. You see, I forget all this. When it came for my release, and I was in Styx on the 11th, on the 1st of December 09, 7 of them came down, because it was now 5 o'clock, and they all wanted to go home, and I refused to. I know I'm not leaving my cell until I've had the paperwork of the hearing today. Because I still didn't have the rest of the paperwork. There's usually a bit more than just a restraining order. They hadn't given. I had refused to take anything earlier at about 3:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and when it came to 4:45. They all came down en masse. And I said, no, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving unless you've got official documents from the court. Because what you brought me last time were handwritten. I saw the handwriting. Of course they were. They were the handwritten notes of Evans, the prosecutor, recommending a draft order that would be shown to me and shown to the district judge. And between them, we might amicably accept a restraining order without any argument. That's what they do regularly with restraining orders. A sensible, civilized way of dealing with usually domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So the husband or the wife is in the cells, and the boyfriend or the husband has got a black guy sitting in the gallery, or whichever way. And they amicably sort out a restraining order that is reasonable.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I never got that chance because they said they maintained that it was the final order. Well, of course it wasn't, and I never got it. And I said, right, I'm not leaving now. There are paperwork summing up this case. I didn't use the word restraining order. I said, I'm not leaving this cell until you officially give me official documents which are to be recorded in the record. And remember, they backdated and tried to scribble out the court log. It was in a bound book. It was in the old ledger, the old daily ledger. And they quickly tried to rewrite that. That's a story in itself. And then they dragged me out of the building, out of the custody suite.
Yeah.
And slammed the door. And I was in a lot of pain because I was on morphine and everything, because this is the time when I couldn't have I needed an operation on the hip and they wouldn't let me do it because they said I had a brain tumour. And which is a load of lies. And they threw all my papers out through the hole in the top of the door where they put the food through. And then they threw out my sticks, and they threw them onto my head. Aluminium, standard sticks, crutches. And I got to my feet. No, as they dragged me from my cell, someone, one of them, well, I know it's one, I remember his face, was trying to stuff paperwork down my left sock.
Right.
And of course I now realised, well, not at the time, but I then realised, I expect half an hour later, that they were serving something on me because the subject of the restraining order had already been raised and nobody had done it. And usually they hand it to you as you leave a cell, as you leave a prison.
Yeah.
They don't give it to you beforehand because the lawyer has it, and you're an idiot and you aren't allowed to think. But I was doing my own court case, which always confuses them. And they were trying to serve the restraining order on me.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They couldn't get it into my sock as the others were desperate. They wouldn't wait for this kid to stuff it into my cell because they wanted to go home.
Right.
They don't get money after 5 o'clock, and therefore all they wanted was me out the front door, and they weren't listening to this little short chap. Well, they're all short, they're Welsh. I forget. And there was one or two quite nice guys there, and of course they'll be giving evidence in the civil court eventually in 10 years' time, I suppose, and 20 years' time. And therefore, what happened? Out through the door, and who was outside the door? 6 or 7 of the 10 that had come to court. Davis, what's his name?
What?
Davis, what's his Christian name? There were several, and I said, take a photograph. And they had me in my wheelchair, handcuffed.
Yeah.
And of course, who were the police there? They'd been sent from London, because I hadn't gone to court 3 days before at Haringey Council's court case.
Yeah.
And they emptied my pockets, didn't they? Was there anything there identifying a restraining order? No, of course there wasn't, because I hadn't been given one.
Right, okay.
And of course, to finish, to repeat, the solicitor who was the barrister who was David Evans, who I arrested, who had been dealing as a prosecutor in the harassment conviction hearing of the 1st of December 2009, he came to court in Bristol years later, while I was still in a wheelchair, and admitted that it could not have been the restraining order that was given to me on the 1st of December, because it wasn't written. It was a draft.
Right.
And he had written it. Got it?
Okay, yeah.
And since then I've got a copy of it officially by going through the channels.
Right, so you still haven't been served a restraining order officially?
No.
Right, okay.
No, I was given a copy of it within a few weeks.
Yeah.
Of what they should have given me, but I never got an original, and I never got it. I didn't get it until after I'd breached it.
Right, okay.
Because I immediately published whatever was going on in court on the website.
Right, okay. Yeah. So they put you in jail for something that didn't exist, basically, but they made out that it did.
No. I don't think it was even drafted. I think by the time they got me out of the building, it had still not been drafted. They drafted a make-believe, and I believe they never actually got round to making it. This was 5 o'clock, 5:30 now, in the evening. You know, it was getting late. And I think they said, "Oh, we'll give them we'll type out the restraining order tomorrow." But
right.
No, I think they would have typed it out that same night, but they never gave it to me.
Right, okay.
Because I was in custody, they could have brought it to me that I was quickly in a car going for London, a police car.
Yeah.
That's what screwed it. If I hadn't been arrested to go to London, none of this would have happened. I would have been given that restraining order officially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I've got all that. This is all, yeah, here now. You know, and for the record, yeah.
Yeah, the main issue now is, of course, the Southwest Police have fabricated the idea that I wrote letters to certain people. You are one of them. You have failed to get evidence from the prison, the police, or the law courts that I ever wrote a letter to you.
Yeah.
I don't remember, because I wrote you at least twice a week.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Of course, the fun one, the one that we're going to have a lot of fun with, but sadly I think they'll stop the case, is Alan Cairns, my own personal MP, who I've known for 10 years. He was a good man. And with this shuffle that's coming quite shortly, I expect he'll be back in the government again. Alan Cairns, I'm supposed to send him a letter from the cells of the Cardiff court wing, the psychiatric wing. I was put with the people who have got psychiatric problems. Anything to cause me hassle.
Yeah.
And they all my letters with strange powder. The prison officers told me, when they searched my cell for 32 minutes, with me in a wheelchair stuck in the shower, for 32 minutes, doesn't take 32 minutes, it takes 4.5 to 6 minutes to do a cell to spin a cell with 2 prison officers.
Yeah.
And of course they were looking for all the stuff for the civil claim, the machine gun civil claim and the PS 614159 claim, in order to stop me getting compensation for 30 years of police bullying. And while I was in the cells, I heard from the prison officers, of course a lot of them are great mates of mine, because I was doing work for people, you know, the prisoners for their court cases and fights with the prison officers had with law courts, motoring and things. And they said, when somebody opened Alan Cairns' letter from me, and the powder came out, I don't think it ever got to the House of Commons. I've never been able to establish whether it ever left the cell, because it was sent after, and therefore they were opening all my letters by the time your letter went out.
Yeah.
My letter to Alan Cairns. But the prison officer said they thought it was heroin.
Right.
I mean, someone else was supposed to have got anthrax powder, and what you had, I do not know. But the fact that everything stank of toothpaste. I mean, if you put wet toothpaste inside an envelope and let it dry out, and if you're opening that envelope under your nose being the first person to open it. I mean, it stinks.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be wet, would it, if you took it off the wall of your cell to send to people?
Well, it stank because I have managed to get hold of. Once I realised what this case was about, I set up the same thing, and there were prison officers that used to come in once a month and take off my signs of a wanted sign of a doctor, forget his name, casual clinic, and he used to come in about once a month and remove them from my cell wall. Well, of course, we don't know what they did with those.
Well,
we don't know whether MPs were getting them and being stuffed into my letters or not, because of course I was under matter level 3. Everything I did on the phone was tape recorded. Everything I wrote was photocopied and sent to London. For terrorism.
Yeah.
I mean, and how on earth they could have me for posting letters that were contrary to the 2001 Prevention of Terrorism Act is a joke, because they had to censor each one.
Well, exactly.
And they stamp it, and they have to stamp the inside with a red stamp saying that it comes from the prison.
Well, I don't forget, I got a letter with the stuff on the back months later. So
Did you ever manage to keep it, find it?
I've got it. Yeah, I've got it here. It's got a statement on it of the MP.
Yes, but was it not something that looked as if it had been taken off my wall?
All there is an inch-wide band of white stuff on the reverse at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to hold it on the wall.
But why?
And the document. Hold it. What was the document? Something of relevance. What we call a key.
Yeah, it was her statement.
Oh yeah, right. Enough of that.
Right, but her.
That's enough. We won't talk about that.
But what I'm trying to say is, how come they let that leave the prison when there'd been all this furore before?
No, come on. You should have seen that place. I mean, they fabricated my
but what if
criminal convictions. No, listen. I live in the real world.
So do I.
And they had set up false criminal convictions years earlier that I was...
I know.
Convictions for drug abuse, for child abuse.
Violence.
And, no, not violence.
Yes, it did. It said that you had a bad temper and that you would freak out over people.
That wasn't a conviction. I'm talking about...
No, but that was part of that thing. Because I wrote to Buckland about it and told him all about the false charges.
Yes, but the convictions are in marble, on stone. That I was convicted, and the parole officer, whatever his name was, Bradley Hughes, took him over 6 months to persuade the police to remove those false criminal convictions. And I said, then suddenly, as soon as he achieved it, there was a magic parole board hearing out of nowhere. Because I wish he hadn't had them removed, because Celia, magistrate retired from Jersey, came over, and the first thing that the ex-senior police officer from London said as chief of the parole board hearing in October 2019, he said to the parole officer, so you obstruct Mr. Kirk leaving because he should have left the prison nearly a year ago. Why? Because he's a risk. And then he asked the other man, who was the police equivalent liaison officer in the prison, and he said, why do you obstruct? Because he's a risk. And we waited. And I waited. I thought, well, shall I speak? No, let him do it. He's in charge, an experienced senior police officer. And he said, what risk? And for the rest of the hearing, I kept saying, what risk? What risk? They could not say what risk I was, or more to the point, I was only a risk to the chief constable due to the civil claims. But I cannot get that transcript. I said, I want this transcript. My sister's here as a witness. Oh yes, you'll get the transcript. And I said, I want the tape recording of it. And he said, I don't know about that, but you can have the transcript. And I said, I won't get it. They will block it. You were in Wales, and we still haven't got it.
Right.
We won't get it.
Right. Sorry, what was that, the transcript for what?
The parole board interview in prison in Bridgend, which caused me immediate release.
Oh, right, yeah.
Paperwork going to London Agent to have it stamped.
Oh, right, okay.
And then when the day they decided I was leaving, I packed up all my stuff into sensible units because I knew I'd beaten them and I knew they had to release me. So I was ready to go, and 4 of them came into my cell. Yeah,
and took the lot.
Imagine 4 of them in a cell.
Yeah.
7 feet by 14 feet.
Yeah.
And they grabbed me, put my arms behind my back violently, put handcuffs on me, picked me off the ground and carried me, and they made sure they did it when all the prisoners were about.
Of course,
Usually they do it quite the opposite way round. They wait until they're in lockdown, so they can't see what's going on. And there were the orderlies already out on the landing, and they carried me head high. 8 of them. 4 were waiting outside the door. One woman, if not 2 women, and 4 outside, and 4 came into the cell, and they physically, bodily, violently took me right across that huge prison complex.
Yeah. I carried you across,
Yep. They wouldn't let me walk, and I couldn't get my wheelchair. I couldn't get my sticks. I've never got them back. And of course, what was that all about? They were confiscating the machine gun civil claim 1CF 0361 and the main one where they'd lost over 40 malicious criminal prosecutions, BS 614159 plus 2 others. And I get out through this. I get to the main gate. They unlocked the padlocks, my ankle and my wrists, and manhandled me, picking me up to a waiting car. And as I struggle into the car from the ground, from the grass, they come out with 2 bundles of papers with GPO rubber bands around them. Well, I was in such pain, I had to go straight to the hospital in London, in the Bristol Royal Infirmary, across the bridge. But somewhere along the line now, I was able to open the envelope and see the bundle. They were the prison letters that were being stopped in Cardiff prison, and the prison letters that were being stopped in G4S Park prison.
Right.
And when they released me, they gave me both bundles. So they should have given me the stop. So they stopped 2 lots of letters from a black and white prison and a privately run G4S prison, as if that wasn't.
Did they give you the letters that they stopped you sending?
Well, we don't know. You see, because my records.
No, did they give them to you?
No, but my copies of records of letters I sent out. The G4S confiscated with all my legal papers, my shoes, and my wheelchair, and my medical records from Caswell Medical. The Gaynor Jones had realised that I'm not going to let go. I'm going to fight them till I die. And she eventually, on the 6th of November 2019, sent my medical records that my doctor in Taunton was screaming for at that time. My doctor in Cardiff, because it shows that the whole harassment of the doctor could not be harassment, because I was simply detecting or preventing further crime by making them hand over those medical records. It took me 10 years to get my medical records that my GP in Taunton now has written for several times, and I have written, I don't know, 100 times in 10 years.
So you still haven't got them then?
No.
Right, okay.
I eventually did a trick, which I'm not repeating here, and managed to get somebody low down in the pecking order to see if gone to the South Wales police, and they've now dealt with them in the way they want to do, keep some, so bury some, shred some, and put the rest back into the prison. So I want disclosure of the record, which they keep when they take stuff off prisoners, because they're all on legal aid. I mean, I was the only guy in the prison I suspect that was not on legal aid, and therefore money no object. The lawyers just fleece the system. Millions. And therefore, they knew that if they were going to stop a prisoner's property leaving the prison, they had to make sure they identified it all, because the prisoner, most of the cases I was having to deal with prisoners was them trying to sue G4S for the pair of shoes gone missing, and their shirt wasn't properly in the washing machine, and really, it's a real eye-opener about the state of our country and the future of our country. The next generation, it really is. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Anyway, good.
All right, I've got all this. All right, and
I'll keep in touch.
Okay, take care.
I may be flying tomorrow, and I may be flying to Wales, and I might be starting to travel around and take statements for the machine gun case.
All right, when you go to France, please let me know.
Yeah, I've got to decide whether it's safe enough, because I'm old and
well, COVID, yeah.
Well, no, I had a serious.
I know. Well, yes.
James Bond film thing.
Yeah, that as well, but it's at an all-time high now, COVID, ain't it? So there you go.
No, I have a damaged diaphragm and let the fourth lower lobe of my left lung due to that flying accident.
Right. Okay.
They said I bounced. They said I bounced off the ground. That's how hard I hit the ground.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Catch you later. Bye.